Want to learn how to create subtle texture on your armor bits? Well, stay tuned. Not So Average Builder is brought to you by these great retailers. There'll be promo codes in the description below. So this is a pretty cool technique that I learned from Nightshiftscale Modeler. As you can see on this armor panel, it's very bland. So what you're going to need is Tamiya Extra Thin, some Tamiya Basic Type Putty, and what you're going to do is you're going to mix them together. And you're looking for a thinner consistency, kind of like a very thin paste, and you'll see why. So all I'm doing is just pulling out some of the Tamiya Extra Thin, and then I'm just going to mix some of the Basic Type Putty with it. I go a little too thick, and I add a little bit more of the Extra Thin, and you're just going to blot this on. So you want a soft bristle brush, and what it's going to do is this layer is going to eat away the plastic, because the Tamiya Extra Thin is going to melt the plastic, and the Basic Type Putty, because it's a lacquer based, is also going to melt it. That's going to work to your advantage. You're going to create some rough texture. Now what he uses this for is for rolled steel, if I'm not mistaken, on tanks. And I figured, you know what, this is a grunt type suit. I want to make it look like it has some sort of hands-on feel to it. And that's all you do. Now this stuff is going to dry out really quickly, so you are going to have to keep adding some of the Extra Thin to it just to keep it from drying out completely. And I'm using a glass palette, which probably didn't help the situation in his video, and there will be a link in the description below to his video, but it has a type of he's got a lid, an old paint lid I think is what he's using to mix it on, and it's strictly for that. So if you're going to do something like that, that's what I would probably do as well. I just had this piece of glass lying around, so I figured why not, I'll use it. Now I don't show the whole thing, but it's the basic principle the whole way through. Just keep dabbing it on. If you get any high spots, go back through with just some Extra Thin, brush a little bit on there and tap it down, and it pretty much remelts it and you're good to go. I didn't worry about like the side panels, but like anything that was showing or visible on the kit, I wanted to make sure it had this texture. And even though this is gray, there is some dark spots showing through because it is a black piece. But once we put a coat of primer on here, you can really see that texture pop. While this is going on endlessly, I just want to take a moment to say, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Love to have you hang around the channel for a bit. Here you see me brushing on some of the Extra Thin because there were some spots on there that were kind of thick and globby, and it did quick work of breaking it down and giving it more texture. And also a kind of second layer, a little thicker layer like that, gives it more of that texture feel, and it just seems to work out. Once you watch his video, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Once you give that about an hour to dry, you're going to sand it down, but not by much. So I'm just taking the 600 grit and I'm very, very lightly hitting it. And all I'm doing is taking any hard edges off to kind of give it that textured feel, but not a spiky texture. But if that's what you're going for, then just skip the sanding step altogether. But just a few seconds with a sanding sponge or a sanding stick, whatever, very, very light pressure will yield the best results. Now I skipped a step. I forgot to show you the primer, but this is what it looks like with the final color applied. You can barely tell on this video, but there is a subtle texture. I didn't go as heavy as Night Shift does on his stuff because his tanks are in a larger scale than these. So I wanted the texture to kind of fit that scale. But remember guys, all you need is Tamiya Extra Thin, some Tamiya Basic Putty, and a stiff bristle brush or a soft bristle brush, and you too can do this. So I want to see some of you do this. Remember guys, don't just be an average builder, be a not so average one. Have a wonderful day. Bye.